And just about the time we decided to buy a house in Ottawa, my husband was offered a job back in Toronto. So I was offered a job at the Ministry of Health, which I took when I was 6 months pregnant with Daniel, the one at the other side of the rowboat in the life jacket. And we kind of made our way along that particular path, and then in 2000 I made a move to CAMH, having worked for the government for about 12 years. So, what do I do now? How do I do it? What does all of this add up to? Transforming Lives is the tagline you may have heard from the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health's media campaign. But I would say that this has been very much a theme of my life, that I've wanted to make a difference. I've wanted to work at changing the world. And the things I've articulated here, respect, empowerment, inclusion, and evidence, were the ones I picked out as the major tools, I would say, that I'm using right now. I won't say they're the ones I've always used, but they're the ones I'm using right now. And I've put up here CAMH's mission and the values that CAMH has articulated, because I want you to know that for an organization of 2,700 people on the staff side that serves 20,000 unique individuals a year with mental health or addiction problems, values are a core issue for us. And we talk about it a lot, and we talk about how to live those values. And we work at it. We work at it, we work at operationalizing what they mean, and we work at finding out how well we're doing, which is where the evidence comes in. So we do a client survey every 2 or 3 years, we do a staff survey every 2 or 3 years, and we look at the results and we make changes. I'm very happy to report that on the question of respect, which is not actually, well, we've now articulated it as a value. That wasn't a value until our most recent strategic plan, but it's always been a theme of the CEO. And we're doing much better on respect. Clients are saying they feel that they're respectfully treated, and staff are saying that their managers respect them and that they're treated with respect. And that turns out to be a very strong correlation for the stats people. If your staff feel respected, they treat others with respect. So I know when I was in school here, we talked a lot about services being organized for the convenience and to meet the needs of the staff. It turns out if you're meeting the needs of the staff, they do a much better job of meeting the needs of clients. The important thing is to articulate what those needs are. If they're around convenience, like only working certain hours or those sorts of things, it's not so good. But if you say respect, then that's a value that can get transferred from one relationship to another, and it's all about the relationships. Stigma is a problem that's endemic in the field. And it turns out, again, by the evidence, and there have been a number of studies done on this, that health professionals are actually the worst stigmatizers. So I could do a whole lot of slides on this, but I've only chosen one. And one of the things that we've tried to do about this is that we've developed a program called Beyond the Label, which is directed at people who work in particularly concurrent disorders, but to talk about stigma and how it affects people and what people can do about it. So that's one thing. Transforming the field of mental health and addictions. What are the things that we need to be doing from a prevention perspective? Well, one thing is we need to get to kids. If you're going to prevent, you need to get to kids. So this is a book that has been co-published now between CAMH and a publisher on how kids can talk to their parents, talk with their parents and with others about depression. And this is an example of some of the kinds of things we're trying to do to transform mental health. We've launched a portal this month in Knowledge Exchange, and I'm going to talk more about opportunities in the field. Don't leave yet. And Knowledge Exchange is a huge one, but this is an example where going to portals to get to information for professionals in the field, people working in allied fields like probation, parole, school systems, those kinds of things, they will be able shortly to access huge amounts of information through this portal. An example of using evidence to change things. We're the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. I've done a lot of work in the last few years in international drug policy, and when you're talking, whether you're talking to the UN or you're talking to people at the federal level or the provincial level, we talk a lot about you need to have information, and we talk a lot about needing to have a balanced policy. So when you come to drug policy, it's a very political field. The money is all in enforcement and politics. It's not in health. If you want to get people to look at addiction as a health issue or as a behavioral issue, why should they do that? Well, we talk about a need for a balanced policy that involves prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and enforcement. And this is a study that was done that shows what happened to overdose deaths in Switzerland when a comprehensive drug policy was introduced. So if you think that the stats and the studies and the evidence don't help you, this is pretty strong. Nobody knows exactly which elements of, because the argument we get all the time is you don't need harm reduction. Nobody likes harm reduction because you let people keep using drugs while you try to address their issues. Nobody likes that. Yeah, but if you don't have that in your drug policy, this doesn't happen. We don't know why. We can't explain all of it, but we can show it. So there's power in this. There's power in evidence. And this is overdose deaths. So this is a big measure. This is not how people think, what people think about it. It's not an opinion. It's not, political or ideological. This is whether people died of overdoses or not. So these are some of the kinds of considerations. So, treatment policies. So these are kind of some of the things: establishing drug courts, needle exchange, targeted secondary prevention, the targeted harm reduction, risk reduction measures. Those kinds of things are very important parts of that policy. What about transformations in my life? What are the important influences that have brought me to this weird position of helping to run a mental hospital? Well, mentors. So mentors will be very important in your life. You have teachers right now. I had a teacher, Ed Bennett. He's here. He was a very important mentor to me and a teacher. And you learn so much from mentors. I had excellent mentors throughout. When I went to work for CACL, Alan Rohr was the executive director at the time. He was a very weird guy, and he unfortunately died in a plane fire prematurely. But he was an excellent mentor. One of the things he taught me was, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be at the top of an organization, all that stuff about having it easy and playing golf when you want and so on, he was always the first guy in. You got there, his car was always parked at the front door because he was there at 7 in the morning. And when you're 21 years old and you're at your first professional job and you can barely get out of bed at that time, let alone be there, and the old guy, he was probably like 35 or something at the time, the old guy's showing up at 7 and he does it every single day, and he flies around the world and he does all kinds of things. It's a powerful message, and sooner or later you get the picture, like you've got to be disciplined, you've got to show up, you've got to do the work. So that was very important. Gilbert Sharp in the Ministry of Health, the legal director, every day, just last week I had a huge crisis at my work, and it made me connect with what Gilbert used to do in the Ministry of Health, which was like 10, 15 years ago. I have no idea, still have no idea how much interference he was running for us as the lawyers with people like the minister and the deputy and the AG and all of that. Like, those are very valuable lessons. So your mentors, the other thing is, you don't choose your mentors all the time. Gilbert, we complained about him every day. Oh my God, where is he? What's he doing? Some other people know Gilbert. He was a character. He was a mentor, whether I wanted it or not. We didn't always get along. We didn't always agree. He kept telling people I was his best lawyer. I kept saying, why do you tell that to people? And we're always fighting about this stuff. So